Hello and welcome to what I knit in 2023. So far, it's the middle of June now, and I have been knitting fast and furious for the first 6 months of the year. I suspect that will probably continue, although probably not at quite the same pace. I've knitted quite a lot this year so far, and I think honestly my wrists might need a little bit of a break. I will be referring to my knitting journal to tell you about what I've knitted so far, and you can see some of it here. I don't actually have all of it with me because 3 of the projects were gifts for other people that I gave away, so I will insert pictures when we get to that point. So let's start with the beginning of the year. This was something I actually started in December and finished by the 10th of January. So this is a child's colourwork jumper for my son. He is 5. So I used just some very cheap acrylic yarn that I already had as leftovers from another Christmas project, which is why it's this green. But I wanted to do a colourwork motif. So what I chose was one of the Arne and Carlos motifs from their Christmas ball book, I think. I wanted to try doing it in a bit of a different method than I've done before. I've knit pieced jumpers, I've knit raglan jumpers, I've knit top down in the round. I've done a lot of different styles, but the one that I had not tried was to do from the bottom up in the round, and then when you get to the underarm to split front and back. So that is what I did on this project. And I can't remember looking at it, and I'm not sure I even have the notes fully here in the book about what choices I made in regards to the sleeve head. I don't know what I did, but I don't think it worked very well. I can see that I did some shaping here at the underarm, and I think I did some shaping here on the sleeve as well, but the result is that it's kind of like pointy. There's a little bit of bulk here from both the seaming up and the choice of shaping that I made. That makes for kind of slightly pointy shoulders, even though it's a drop shoulder, so it drops off of his shoulder and then has a kind of bump here, which it's not perfect, but he's 5, so he moves all the time, so I kind of think it's not that noticeable. Like 3 out of 5 stars for this. I would knit a similar project again. I loved the colors, and the yarn is a great choice for kids because they are very hard on jumpers. But I would definitely be a bit more thoughtful about the shaping at the top of the sleeves. The next project that I did, which was, I started the 3rd of January and it took me like a month and a half to make them, was this pair of socks. Now, a month and a half is a bit ridiculous for socks. I know I have made a pair of socks in just a couple of days before for a friend when she was visiting. But the reason why I took so long on these socks will soon be made apparent. These were made with a really wonderful sock yarn that we found in my local yarn store. And it was actually selected by my friend. So last year, one of my friends came to visit, and she crochets and knits. She kind of has just started doing some knitting projects. And so we went to the yarn store here in town, and I told her, I will make you a jumper because we had talked about some jumper patterns that she really liked. She loves sheep. So my intention was to make her some kind of sheep themed jumper. So we went to the yarn store and we selected the yarn for her jumper that I was going to make for her, and also for a pair of socks, because I said I probably can make you a pair of socks before you leave the country. She lives about like a 12-hour flight from me now. So while we were there, she selected this yarn to have me make a pair of socks for her over the weekend while she was staying with us. And I was able to do that, and they were a lovely pair of socks. But we were standing in the yarn store and I was like, I wonder if I can get 2 pairs of socks out of 1 skein of yarn, because I was just thinking, oh, if there are leftovers, I should do something with that as well. And she kind of heard me mumbling to myself, could see my train of thought, I guess. And she was like, I'll just buy you a skein of yarn too, and then I can have socks and you can have socks and we will have matching socks, which was very sweet of her. So I made these, and I actually have another pair that I did not make this year, but a very similar sock. So I got both pairs of these socks out of a single skein of 100 grams of fingering weight merino nylon from the local yarn store. I can't remember the dyer, but this is from a hand dye company. Yeah, really lovely. I love these socks. I use them all the time. They're absolutely fantastic in the cold weather. So yeah, 5 stars for those. I would definitely make them again. The only difference is that I would probably make them taller next time, which is in fact what I'm doing with the pair of socks that I am halfway through now. They're just a plain color. They're hand-dyed yarn, but it's a plain color with no contrast heels and toes. But I'm doing them as a taller sock so that they work well with boots. Right. The next project is one that I do not have with me. So to continue the story from my friend visiting and us standing in the yarn store selecting yarn for me to make her a jumper, the jumper that she wanted me to make, I will put a picture of it up on the screen. I don't know if you've ever done intarsia knitting before. I hadn't. Let's just say I did not know what I was getting into when I agreed to make this particular jumper. I cannot tell you how many hours I spent knitting those sheep. They're roughly 70 sheep, and it takes an immense amount of care to make sure that they all look good at every point where those colors cross. Yeah, it was massive. It was a massive project, but it turned out really beautiful. I'm glad that I took the time to do it the way I did. I finally got the hang of the yarn. The yarn choice was something where, again, in retrospect, I would have helped her to select. I maybe would have tried to steer her away from a couple of the yarn choices, because, for example, that this was made in Rowan felted tweed as the main color, and that is a color shifting yarn. So in this particular project, it shifts quite significantly from almost a denim blue, like a lighter denim blue, to a very pinky purple. And only in one ball, oddly, there was a section of a really bright, beautiful pink, which ended up on one of the sleeves. So in addition to the fact that this was a very complicated pattern to put together, there was also the fact that I was trying to make it look organic and not too choppy with the color changes on this yarn. And I started with one of the sleeves so I could kind of get a hold of what was going on. And I really wish I had knitted some kind of practice round with all of the right yarns, but at the same time, I don't know that I would have been able to, I don't know that I would have known how big I needed to make it in order to actually get the colors to work correctly, because I probably would have just done like one swatch with one sheep on it as a swatch for that. And that wouldn't have been enough to really tell me enough information about the way that that yarn color was going to shift across the knitting of that project. That project is one that I think she found it on the hobby website. It's the Dolly Sheep Sweater by Knit Gang. It's knit in pieces and then joined up, sewn up. I have not been able to find anyone else who has knit this jumper on Ravelry or anything. So I think other people who were more experienced in Intarsia perhaps knew what a time sink that particular jumper was going to be, which is why it took me just over 2 months to complete it. And I was knitting that at the same time I was knitting those socks, which is why those socks took so long. They were my sanity project in between, or one of my sanity projects in between knitting all those sheep. I have no regrets about doing it in terms of I'm so glad that I made it for her, and she's the only person in the world I would ever make such a complicated jumper for. We've been friends since we were tiny. But yeah, that project, I have mixed feelings because like as an experience, that was like a 1 star out of 5, but the finished project was a 4 or a 5 out of 5. So I don't know, it averages out at like a 2.5 or 3 out of 5 stars, 2.5 stars. Another project that I started in January as a sanity project for while I was knitting the sheepy jumper was this one, which is actually really stained on this side, so I'm not going to show you this side. This is a jumper that I made for my daughter, who is, she's 8 at the time, and I just love this. This was made in scraps, basically. I had this idea for this stitch pattern. I made this by doing, so stockinette on all of this cream, but then there's a row of stockinette and then a couple of rows of garter stitch here in the blue, and then the purple in stockinette, and then a couple of rows of garter stitch again in the blue. And that makes for these lovely textured stripes that I just completely love. And this was so straightforward because it's just a simple raglan construction. This was so fun and easy to make. I just absolutely would do it again. In fact, I would like to make this same jumper for myself in something really interesting. I feel like these small textured stripes surrounding the slightly larger solid stripe makes for a really interesting background for using a neutral color for the body and then a really dark color for these textured stripes, and then some really interesting speckled or color shifting yarn or something else that you would not normally perhaps put into a full jumper because it would be a bit psychedelic. So I'm really looking forward to finding something that I want to make this jumper again for myself. This one is a 5 out of 5. I would definitely make that again for my daughter again, given that this one is felted and stained, but also I would make one for myself, absolutely 100%. Now this next one is this green t-shirt, green striped t-shirt. I love this so much. This is something that was inspired by an Instagram account that I follow, and this was one of the first ones that I saw, and I was like, yes, I'm making that for myself. So I ordered yarn. The yarn was sitting for over a year before I finally sat down and said, yes, I'm ready to make that now. So I definitely recommend. She has some really spectacular t-shirt color combinations and stripe designs, and they're so much more interesting than just your usual knitted t-shirts. So I'm very into that. I love this. And I plan on making more like this one. Perhaps not exactly the same striping pattern, although I 100% love this one. But just for the sake of variety in my wardrobe. So this was made in Hobby Cotton DK in the 3 colors you can see here. I don't remember what they're called. They were probably just numbers, to be honest, on the website. In retrospect, I think DK is too heavy for a t-shirt. It does kind of, I sweat in this in the summer, in the spring and summer. I wouldn't wear it today. Today it's like 27 Celsius, so I would not wear it outside today. It would be too hot. So that is something to think about. I live in quite a mild climate though, so I am able to wear this pretty frequently through the rest of the year. So this is, I'm gonna say probably 4 stars out of 5, because I was working just from my own understanding of how to create a pattern. I did not have a pattern because she didn't have them in English at the time that I made this, or I didn't know that she had them if she did. The only thing I would change was that I made this raglan increase because it's knitted from the top down. I made the raglan increase too wide, so there's some gaping under the arm, which I don't love. So next time I would make some small tweaks to the actual pattern, the knitting instructions, and I would make some tweaks to the colors, only for the sake of not having repeats in my wardrobe. And again, this was one I loved so much, I knitted it in about 12 days, which, I mean, it's a t-shirt, it's pretty quick anyway. Right, so the next thing that I made was this. This is a school jumper for my other son, who is 7. Yeah, so my son gets really sweaty, and when I was buying school uniform last year, I did not think he would wear a jumper, because in every previous year I have bought a school jumper at the beginning of the school year and he has never worn it. So I thought, forget that, I'm not buying him a school jumper this year. Wouldn't you know it, in February we had a real cold snap, and he came home from school telling me he was really cold at lunch and he wanted a jumper, and he wanted it as soon as possible because he was freezing in the school. And I thought, you know, because it was the weekend that he told me this, I thought, you know what, I could probably knit up a jumper as quickly as I could order one, and I did. It took me like a week to make this, so I think it was pretty even. And then he got it was made by me and not just some shop factory worker in some third world country, you know? So that made me happy that I was able to make that for him. It's super wrinkly and abused. Again, why we make children's clothing in acrylic yarns. He honestly, I found this morning completely rumpled up into a ball at the back of his drawer. So the poor jumper and he won't even be able to wear it for school next year because they're changing the uniform. But I still love the fact that I made this for him. It looks so cute on him. And yeah, definitely would make it again. I used a pattern from a book of children's knitting patterns that we have. It's very basic. It's a top-down raglan with a V-neck, and then you go in after and do the next time I would look up a tutorial for how to do the mitered stitch at the V-neck. I'm not going to show you up close because it doesn't look very good. I did not do a good job. I tried following some instructions I found online and did not do a good job. So yeah, that's that. I would probably knit another school jumper, but it's one that I would knit just as kind of a, here's something I can just do some stockinette and get the desired result, and that's fine. The next thing that I knitted is the other, well, it's actually the other two gift knits that I did this year. So I am a big fan of Jen Steingass's jumpers. She does some really beautiful in the round colorwork designs. I love the colorwork designs. They are really fantastic. And I bought the Hinterland pattern when I first started knitting 3 years ago. And I have made it a couple of times. I've done like variations on the usual way that the pattern's written. I've like varied where I put the pattern, top or the bottom, whether it was on the sleeves or not. So I love that pattern, but I have wanted to make it in the original pattern colors that were listed in the picture, or rather the colors that you see in the pattern picture that she has as the example, because she did it in a very beautiful, subtly, I don't remember the word for it, but the color is not flat. You get bits where it's lighter, bits where it's darker, but she did it in a really lovely dark blue with a gold for the color work. And I have been in love with this color combination ever since. I have been wanting to make one that is just like it. And so my sister was coming to visit, and I decided I would make her the Hinterland jumper. So this I made in Malabrigo Arroyo, which is Malabrigo yarn. Is a South American company, and their yarns are just completely wonderful. 100% merino, superwash merino. They are so incredibly soft. They can go in the washing machine. You can wear them and wear them and wear them. I have a jumper in Malabrigo Rios that I made last year that I just, honestly, I wore it every day for at least a couple months because it was so comfortable, so soft. Anyway, I love that yarn. So I bought the Malabrigo Arroyo in the color Azul Profundo, which is just the most beautiful dark blue, really, really blue. And as a secondary color, I got an Abercairn Yarns fingering weight, and the color that I picked was Redwood. And this colorway, I looked at all of the skeins in the shop in our local yarn store, and I picked the one that was the most gold. So Redwood is a colorway that has quite a lot of, it's got white, it's got brown, it's got red, it's mostly yellow. So I looked for the one that had the most yellow overtones in all of the other colors, because some of the other skeins, because this is a hand-dyed yarn, some of the other skeins had almost a pinkish tint or an orange tint, and I didn't want that. I wanted this, when you looked at it, to look gold. And it was absolutely the perfect yarn, because the one that I picked up is a blue-faced Leicester and silk mix. So the silk gave that color work the most amazing shine. And when it was paired with the blue, it just popped. It was so good. It looks so good in person. It's one of those, I think, of all the jumpers I've ever made, I'm the most proud of that one. And part of it is because I went ahead and invested in the very best materials. I had something really specific in mind, and I just went for it. And I said, this is what I'm looking for. That one is 5 out of 5. It is 6 out of 5. It is completely the most beautiful thing I have made. Someday I will top that. Maybe with another Genstein guest pattern, because I do have plans to make a different one of the Genstein guest patterns, but I definitely recommend her patterns. They are so good. At the same time that I was making the jumper, I planned to make her some socks as well, and I don't have them with me, and I don't actually even have a picture of them. But I made them very similar to the blue-toed pair that I showed you earlier, but with a purple. So a white base yarn with specks of purple and blue and just really pale pink. It made for a very pretty sock. And I paired that with blue heels and toes. Not the same color. Yes, the same color. I don't know, maybe they were the same color as these, the heels and toes. I think I may have had enough of that particular yarn left to make the heels and toes. Regardless, they were very cute, just the usual vanilla socks in 75-25 merino nylon. Contrast heels and toes. I mean, what more can you say? I love a vanilla sock. Yeah, they're great. Okay, so the next one that I made, I'm gonna apologize now because I have not locked this. Ooh, let's see if I can get it off. This is a pattern of my own design, which I'm really happy with how the pattern came out. I think it's adorable. But the point of this pattern was to use up some colors that I had of this yarn so that I could have a sense of what I should make with the rest of this yarn. The story of this yarn is that at my local yarn store, the owner was getting rid of, she needed to clear out the end of line of a particular yarn, which was West Yorkshire Spinners Illustrious, which is a wool alpaca blend. And she had loads of different colors, and I saw it and I loved it. I particularly loved this white, this cream. It's more of a cream. I loved this cream, and there was a forest green, and I loved those. I wanted to do something with them. And my husband had actually just knitted another wool alpaca jumper. And when I put it on, I thought, this is really soft. It feels really good, but it also feels really hot. And as I said, I'm a hot person. I sweat a lot. I didn't want to sweat all over beautiful alpaca yarn. So I thought I'm going to make a test knit. Because I'd already bought basically all she had of this West Yorkshire Spinners Illustrious. Loads of balls of it, because I was able to get it at a ridiculous cheap price. So I have loads of it, and I thought I will just do a test knit of something to see how it works as a jumper, and see whether I'm going to want to be knitting jumpers with this or whether I'm going to want to knit cardigans with this. because of course a cardigan, you get more of a breeze. You can cool down really easily by just like opening it a bit wider. You can take it off more easily without worrying about your hair or whatever. So yes, this was my test jumper. And this was another one where I was experimenting with the construction because I had never done a top-down drop shoulder construction. So I started with the top back, and as you can see, oh, well, maybe you can see, you might be able to see that this is double moss stitch, and there's a row up here of just a very simple lace motif that goes across the back of the shoulder. I just love that eyelet pattern. And that pattern reappears here on the sleeves, halfway down at the color change, where it then goes into stockinette and a lovely balloon sleeve. So you knit the top of the back first, sorry, I got distracted, and then you pick up the shoulder and knit one shoulder and then the other shoulder, and then join it up and work down in, you work down from the underarm in the round. Yeah, so not sure I'm the biggest fan of that construction method. I feel like it takes longer somehow. It doesn't feel as natural as working from the bottom up and doing the same thing almost. I don't know what to feel about it. It's not something I want to immediately repeat, that construction method, although I think I've actually got plans to knit something that is with that construction method quite soon, so we'll see. Anyway, so this is done. Yep, you've got another row of that same eyelet pattern here, and then this white section has just the occasional purl stitch, which gives the illusion of diagonal lines across the cross, which I love. Just a nice little illusion lattice on that white section, and then the bottom is in stockinette. So I made this as a test and realized the day that I put it on, I finished it, I put it on, it's too hot. This yarn is too hot for me. And weirdly, it's too hot and too cold at the same time. Because when I'm inside and the air is still, I get way too hot wearing it. When I am outside, oh, well, unless it's really cold. If it's really cold, it's fine. But if I'm outside and it's really cold and the wind is blowing, even just a little bit of wind, it cuts right through. Now, some of that could be due to these eyelets, because of course those will let the air through. Some of it might be from the double moss stitch. There's a texture there that I don't think is blocking the wind. I think it's just letting it through somehow. I don't know. In all, I think I will wear this. I like it. I like the colors. I like the combination. I like the design. I really like the style of this, the design of it. But I'm not sure how useful it will be. It's not one that I'm going to put on every day just because I love wearing it so much. So that's like 3 out of 5 maybe. Like there are things that I like and things that I don't like. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just a bit meh, honestly. So yeah, that's that one. Almost finished. Not that much more left. This was my first summer knit of this year. This is knitted in Rowan's linen cotton blend. It's a 50-50 linen cotton blend, and it's in this kind of natural color. I love this. I love this so much. This is so incredibly wearable. It's really quite stiff. It's just been washed in the washing machine and come out and laid flat to dry. So it's a little bit stiff, but when you put it on, it loosens up really quickly. It just kind of warms up with your body heat and becomes a much more pliable fabric. I love a slightly stiff fabric. I think they look good on me. I don't think I look good in like a lace or a really floaty, frilly thing. I like the bit of sharpness. I like a bit of sharpness in my clothing. So this was done as a top down in the round. There's a bit of green fluff there. This is top down in the round with this notch at the neck. And the sleeves are just knit completely straight, but it gives the appearance of a slight flare to the sleeve. I don't think that happens if you are a really small size, but I have like a 40-inch bust measurement. So I do think when you get into the when you get into a slightly larger bust measurement, knitting a straight sleeve does not make it look straight. And I think that doesn't get taken into account in patterns that are written by people of a smaller size. I don't think they necessarily understand that knitting a straight sleeve when your bust size is over maybe 35, it gives you the appearance of a flared or bell sleeve instead of the very straight appearance that you get when you have the smaller bust size. It has to do with the ratio of your bust circumference versus your like forearm and wrist circumference. Anyway, that's a tangent. I love this. I love this. This is super wearable. I made this again as a test. This was another yarn that I got from the local yarn store as a reduction because she had not been able to shift any of this type of yarn. The climate here is too cold and people are just not, or last year, people were just not knitting any hot weather clothing in a DK linen cotton blend. And I understand why. It's a little heavy for summer. It's a little too thick and warm to really want to wear it in the summertime. However, it is perfect for the transitional seasons. It is perfect for spring, it's perfect for autumn, and in this lovely neutral color. This is, I would say probably a 4 out of 5, only because there are some things I would change about this particular garment. I love the sleeve finishing, and I love the hem finishing, and I love the look of the notch, but I need to figure out what to do about this neck. This is a pattern that I just made up, just something that I did on my own. It's got a taper at the waist as well, so it just pulls in nicely, gives a bit more shape. And that taper at the waist is super important with this linen cotton because it does relax significantly. Not in all areas, but certainly at the waist, because when you sit down, the shape of your waist changes and the bulk that's there often gets larger. You look bigger when you're sitting down than when you're standing up. So by doing a taper, rather than taper and widen, by doing a straight taper, it means that when I sit down, the bottom flares out just to what looks like it's a taper and a flare, because it is a cotton linen yarn that will relax with wear. So yeah, I love this. I'm gonna wear this a lot more when the weather cools down again. It's too warm currently to wear this, but I am looking forward to wearing that again. Right, okay, the next thing in my knitting journal is not the next thing that I started or completed, I don't think. It is what I called the berry tee, and it is what I am wearing today. But the one that I have in my knitting journal was that I was trying to figure out how to make a t-shirt in a light fingering yarn. I couldn't find a pattern for what I was looking for because what I wanted to make was a t-shirt in light fingering yarn. Just plain, basic, looks like a t-shirt. And I don't know why. I don't know why I couldn't find a pattern. Maybe they are out there. If you know of light fingering weight t-shirt patterns, I would love for you to leave it in the comments because I couldn't find them. Maybe I'm just bad at Google. I don't know. But I found this yarn, loved it, was unable to describe this color because it's not really pink and it's not really purple and it's not really burgundy or any of the other pink family, red family, purple family colors that I could think of. So I just called it Berry. Now, when I actually looked at the color on the yarn band, it is called Boysenberry. So it's a beautiful color and it is truly a berry color, which makes me happy. So I called this the berry tee and I put it in my knitting journal and I tried to figure out I tried to write up a pattern basically because I couldn't find one. And this meant doing a gauge swatch and doing a lot of math to figure out stitch counts and trying to figure this out. And I wanted to do one with the very traditional seaming at the sleeves. I wanted to do a separate sleeve. But that, I didn't want to do another one that was top down with a separate sleeve. I wanted to do a bottom up one because I had just finished the purple one and I didn't want to do that again. So I tried doing it from the bottom up. And cast on 320 stitches, which was the calculated amount that I needed to make my size. I knitted 2 inches and discovered that the work was twisted. And I had twisted it right at the beginning. So I had a Mobius strip instead of the bottom hem that I was looking for. So I had to take that out completely and this project had to go in the corner and I had to rethink my entire life choices, or at least my choices about, is it really a good idea to cast on 320 stitches in the round and try to keep those from twisting? The answer is no, don't do that. I advise against it. So that went in the corner. But I came back to it and on a different page in my knitting journal, I started with this. And this is the top-down circular yoke version. So you still get a t-shirt, but it's not that traditional t-shirt construction. I love this. I am so glad that I took the time to figure out a pattern for myself that is a 4-ply cotton. This is a 4-ply mercerized cotton, King Cole Giza. So it's 100% mercerized cotton, 4-ply. Knit on 3mm needles from the top down. Only took a couple weeks to make, so it didn't even take a huge amount of time. The only thing that lengthened the amount of time that I spent on it was that I have done folded hems at the sleeve and the bottom, which look amazing. I love it. But it does take extra time because you don't just knit to the length that you need. You have to knit an inch past that. And in 4-ply on 3mm needles, that does mean that's extra time. That is enough extra time that you notice it, especially when you have to do 3 separate, have to do that 3 separate times. But if you see my knitting book, there is so much crossing out and so many mistakes. My goodness, this took me a huge amount of time to figure out because this is the first time I have tried making my own circular yoke. But I'm glad I did it because I love it. Again, 5 out of 5. This is, I am planning already to make this again. I just need to find which color I want to make it in because I would like to make this in another color. Not white, not cream, not beige or anything like that. It needs to be in a color. It looks really it looks nicest in a color. It also, being in a color, gives it a bit more, what's the word? You can't see through it as easily. If it was knit in a really light color, it would be beautiful, but it would be more see-through. And I don't want a see-through t-shirt. So yeah, 5 out of 5, would do it again. And the last project, oh no, I've got the next to last project is this pair of socks. This is the Bobble 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 Pop sock by Lucy Crosby. And it's cute. I got this as part of a mystery sock box that my local yarn store was running. And it's with a Yarny Octopus yarn that she did specially for spring. And I'm so glad I only finished them last night. I did one and then spent a couple weeks making other stuff like this. And so I did not make any more progress on these. I don't think I would knit them again because I don't like doing bobbles. But then I've said that about so many other things where I thought, this is a real fuss, I don't like knitting it, but I like the finished result. I'm not sure I would trust me when I say that I'm not gonna knit that again. So yeah, those are cute. I really like the way the color came out. It's just such a cute, springy sort of color. Right, this is the final project that I'm going to show you. This is so heavy that I cannot hang it up normally on a hanger. It is the Watkins cardigan. Now, I saw this on Engineering Knits YouTube channel. She was wearing this, or maybe she was showing it off as part of a year in review for knitting. And she made it in white with 2 shades of blue for the color work, and I loved it the minute I saw it. I think it's really, really cute. It's such a cute pattern. And I have been looking for yarn to make it, but when I bought the pattern not that long ago, and I have been looking for yarn to make this. It called for either bulky or super bulky yarn, and that is not cheap. So I was thinking, what can I make with this? And it was about the same time that I finished this purple one, and I was like, wow, I've got loads of this yarn now, and it's not something that I'm going to be able to wear as a jumper. The two things came together in my mind, and I thought, let me make this Watkins cardigan out of the West Yorkshire Spinners Illustrious held double. Now, if you are an experienced knitter, or even an inexperienced knitter who has just done something like that before, you might be able to notice the immediate flaw in my plan, which is that this weighs a ton. It's honestly so heavy. It's really heavy, and my big regret about it is that it like gradually slides off my shoulders. I've only worn it once because, again, the weather is too warm for this, but I just really wanted to make it. I know it's the wrong time of year to be making a massive bulky weight wool alpaca cardigan. Codigan even. I think this is more of a codigan than it is a cardigan. Yeah, so choices were made, regrets were had. I think it's really cute. I do think it's cute. It's really hot, and that might get better when the weather's actually cool enough that I need something to keep me warm. There were actually, just a couple weeks ago, there was a spell of cold weather where I was cold in the house because we turned off the heating a while ago, and I was cold in the house because it was cold outside, and I thought, oh, I really want that cardigan. I want to finish it so I can wear it and then I won't be cold. So I'm sure I will enjoy it much more when the weather is in the right way for me to enjoy it. But yeah, I still think it's a really cute pattern. I struggled with it. I did not enjoy knitting it because I do not enjoy knitting on very large size needles. This was knit on 6 and 8 millimeter needles. And it actually recommended using 9 millimeter needles for the colorwork section. And I don't enjoy super bulky knits. And now I know that this is the first one I've done on such large needles. And now I know that I do not like that. And I will not do that again. But again, maybe I just made it the wrong time of the year. Maybe I will enjoy it much more when autumn comes and I'm cold again. Because it is really cute and I feel like I'm going to be able to wear it with just about everything in my wardrobe. I could put this on with dungarees, I can put this on with dresses, I can put it on with jeans and a t-shirt. So I'm looking forward to wearing it, even if I didn't enjoy the process of making it as much as I hoped to, or as much as I enjoyed some of my other projects that I've made this year. I think it'll come out. I don't want to give a rating to this one because mixed feelings, yeah. Well, that is everything that I have made in the first 6 months of 2023. It has been a great year for knitting for me. I've tried a lot of new things. I feel like I'm kind of getting to a place where I'm comfortable knitting pretty much anything. I've got lots of things lined up that I'm ready to knit for coming 6 months, and maybe I'll see you again then. Bye!